Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Wolves Fancast YouTube channel for a very, very special episode in the wake of Julen Lopetegui being appointed as the new Wolves manager from the World Cup break onwards. Myself and Tom are really delighted to bring to you a man who's probably the authority on Spanish football, especially in the UK, featured heavily on the La Liga coverage since the late 90s, I think. Would you say, Guillem? It's Guillem Balague.
You can say that. Since 1997. By the way, hear me out. Okay? Ready? Julen Lopetegui.
Julen. Appreciate that. No, I was actually going to ask you about a correct pronunciation. So, no, I do appreciate that. Thank you for that.
It's, for those that study Spanish, you may be surprised because it's a J. A J is Julen. But he's obviously from the Basque Country. And in Basque, Julen sounds like a Y, Julen.
Okay, good, because that is a point I needed clarifying myself clearly. No, that's all good. We'll get right into it. We haven't got too much time. It is match day. We have Brighton to go and beat shortly. Yeah. But I think to start with, obviously you've alluded to some of the insight around the appointment in a video on your Twitter feed earlier today. Do you think Lopetegui would have joined the club had it not been for some involvement from a certain George Mendes? Do you think this would have been an option for us?
It helps, no doubt. He obviously, all the negotiations were taken by Carlos Bucero, who's a very discreet but very good agent who is close to George Mendes. So he wasn't directly Mendes, but in any case, it helps if you actually are going to a place where not only you're appreciated, you're going to be working with people that you know. So the references that he got from the club were direct. In which case, you are talking about, going from the uncomfortable situation of being out of a job to a place where you're going to be respected and the promises that are given to you are going to be delivered. This is so important, especially having been where he's been, especially at Real Madrid. It was the wrong choice, not because he's not a magnificent manager, it's because the president prefers managers, and the team as well, prefers managers that let things go and let players do their thing and are respectful to the chairman and stuff like that. And quite clearly, Julen not only was respectful, but was trying to put in place a structure to the team, something that perhaps the players didn't accept so gladly. And all that went on the back of him having to accept Real Madrid because it was his home. But that now with the context, you think it's better if you go to a place where you know where you're heading, where you know there is a plan, there is a project, and where you, all of a sudden, as soon as you walk in, you become a very key part of it, not just the coach that has to follow certain ways like he was at Real Madrid.
Yeah, I mean, we all understand the kind of the Mendes influence at the club, and it's been positive in the large part, and I think we're all really happy with the fact that Lopetegui is going to be our new manager. In terms of his coaching principles, he spent time, obviously, in his youth at Real Madrid. He spent time under Johan Cruyff at Barcelona as well. Is there things from the way he manages the club that he's drawn on those experiences, would you say?
No doubt. At Real Madrid, you learn to compete. That is the highest of demands, and you recognize if you're able to do that, if they push you towards the next stage and you get into the first team, that means mentality-wise, you are very strong. But I do believe that he's more of a Johan Cruyff than a Real Madrid manager, if you like. He likes a very modern 4-3-3 system a lot of the time, where the physicality mixes well with possession, building from the back, pressure high intensity. I always said in the best Sevilla, that under Lopetegui, that it was the most Premier League team there was, because they applied high tempo and intensity to everything they did, and it was continuous. It wasn't just, as it happens a lot of the time in Spain, where you go for pressure high, and then when you recover the ball, you go, all right, let's go to rest and start over. No, it was like boom, boom, boom all the time. And that made Sevilla so difficult to beat. They didn't have the quality up front that allows you to resolve problems very quickly and games very quickly. So they had to continue back in this idea that collective answers were going to take them further, which they did. In fact, with Sevilla, in a way, a team not dissimilar to Wolves in that they don't have the best players, but sometimes they send cleverly, and the coaches have to maximize the potential and push them, keep pushing for players to be sold eventually, maybe, but in any case, to be the best that they can be at that point. Now, he did that with Sevilla and took Sevilla to 3 consecutive years to the Champions League, which they've never done in history. But as with always in life, it gets to a point that for a bunch of reasons, a lot of reasons, and I don't know if we'll have the time to explain them all here, but at Sevilla, I think the best decision was to just take a step aside and recover energies, because I felt he was really tired at the end, and just look for another project once his personal situation was kind of resolved.
Yeah, many thanks to those of you who joined us live today. Please do be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll bring in Tom here. Tom, I think you had a question lined up for Guillem as well.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, has he got like a really trusted backroom team, a team that he takes with him at each club? Are we expecting a sort of a revolutionary new sort of a team in that regard? Trusted coaches that he uses?
Yeah, he's got his assistant Pablo Sanz, and he's got people around him that he's been joining through his career. I think that it's always good to have a little bit of a refresher, somebody that brings something new, and generally that tends to be somebody that's already in the club. And we'll have to find out if that's the case. I imagine something like that would happen, but it's so important to have the right coaching staff, and I think he got the right balance of people that are willing to say to him, some of them former players who have played at the highest level, who were willing to say to him, maybe not this way, or yes, let's go for it. And he gets that. He certainly gets that. As I say, these are people that have learned their trade in Spain mostly, but that have studied the trends of football. That happened a lot, for instance, in during the pandemic. Many coaches did that, not just Julen, but I know that Julen and Pablo Sanz did study where football was going, where it was coming, where it was going, and to try to apply to their own teams. And what they identified was that the physicality of it is important. And this is not about being the tallest or the strongest, but to have enough energy to do the kind of stuff that he likes the team to do. And it is required, that kind of energy from himself, which is the first one to deliver it. The worst thing that could happen to the coaching staff is that he doesn't bring his family with him, because that means he'll be 24/7. and that is a lot of Julen. But in any case, whatever happens personally, yes, he leads by example. You'll see in the technical area how he is constantly reminding players of their job or what they have to do, of the intensity that they have to apply, the apply constantly as well. So no time to drop. And it's only 90 minutes, but you have to give absolutely everything, especially now that you have the possibility of making changes and all that. But in any case, energy is very important, and it has been important to have a break for him and for the coaching staff, some of which stayed in Sevilla, who wouldn't if you could, and they just feel ready now for take on what it is, a really difficult job. Not so much because of what quality of the squad is or the results. It's just dynamic. When to change the dynamic is the hardest thing in football. You start doing things differently to how you ever did it, and then you start doubting. And if doubt is spread throughout the squad, and I see that there is doubt, doubt and too much, what would be the word? Perhaps too much simplicity in the way the team plays. What he's going to add is layers of tactical knowledge of different responses to whatever happens on the pitch, and but you hope that he applies that very quickly because the situation is difficult.
We've actually got some live team news announced, obviously, for the game today. I think a lot of Wolves fans would suggest that this is an underperforming group of players, given the talent that they have. Guillem, who do you think stands to benefit the most from Julen and his management?
I think Rowan for certain, for instance, but not just him. I mean, he's identified that this is a squad that has got a lot of talent, and exactly as you describe it, with the potential to grow a lot. So it will be a matter of identifying first, I imagine, a group of players that can affect games straight away. So with personality, who know the role, and then allow others that perhaps haven't been performing at the best to gain confidence. Confidence, the mind, is something that is big for him as well. This is a modern manager that has obviously learned a lot by being in big changing rooms, but he's applying all that to the teams that he's got. So there are players there that, as always, when a new manager comes, some will feel revitalized straight away because they will know that their role will be important, and others that will doubt further than they are doubting already. So it's a matter of giving them confidence. And I'm not sure he will talk a lot about signings and stuff like that, even though quite clearly the squad needs it, perhaps a striker. But in any case, it will be a matter of discussing that one, from now on behind the scenes. But right now, it's all about giving full confidence to everybody that are there right now.
Yeah, you touched on the striker there. What sort of profile does he tend to go for? Is it the sort of the physical type striker? It's plain to see for anyone that Wolves obviously lacking goals and a striker's needed. I know we saw some links to Mariano Diaz in the week, but what's the sort of profile that he tends to like up front?
If you look at the teams, the last two teams, he didn't choose the players that much. He could define what a profile should be. And of course, at Sevilla, you have Rafa Mir, who is a striker that's big, but not a great head of the ball. He's fast and powerful, who, of course, has been in the Premier League already. And you had Nesiri, who, again, is fast, not the greatest finisher. We've seen him not working very well. And he has used, Isco as a false nine with the national side sometimes. So it will depend on, he's adaptable to whatever that is, as long as he scores goals, and as long as he's not the only one scoring goals, then he'll be fine. What you're going to see is a team that requires to have the ability to recover the ball early, the physicality to actually do it high up the pitch if possible. They will build from the back, and they will have tactical knowledge that would allow them to adapt to whatever happens in the game. You say all that and it doesn't sound any sexy and it sounds a bit boring. Oh, why? Doesn't he want a winger like Traore that does a million things? And then we'll see. Certainly, as long as he gives everything that's required, then he will be an important player. But in terms of names, I don't know. In terms of profile, it depends with everything else that the sides have got right now.
Yeah, I think we're all intrigued about how Adama Traore fares under his management, for sure. I think the Wolves fans have missed, in the last couple of years, a real kind of relationship with their manager. Naturally had a good one with Nuno Espirito Santo due to the success we had under him. Lopetegui obviously had a good relationship at Sevilla, given even at the end when things weren't going so well, they were singing his name at the end of his tenure there. In terms of how he builds a relationship with the fans, is he kind of got a pitch side demeanour that allows that, or what would you say he looks at that?
That's an interesting one, because with Sevilla, he went through different phases. At the beginning, the fans were like, him? Really? I mean, things didn't work out at Real Madrid. And Monchi insisted, no, this is my man, because he's a really good manager. And he's not one to play to the gallery, to play to the fans, to do things that will please fans. Not necessarily. He wants the team to talk for him. When he was very strong is, of course, when doubts started in the last few months, and then he didn't hide. He was there to explain why he thought, well, as much as he could, why he thought things weren't working. But by then, the fans had lost patience. Interestingly enough, generally, that means they go against the manager. But here, there was a division. Some thought, Lopetegui, it's to blame because the squad now seems tired and, squeezed every drop out of them. But most actually went, that's directors of football job. He Monchi, a very famous one, of course, who's done so well for Sevilla, hasn't recycled the side at the quality that deserved. And right now, yes, it is a tiring squad. You can see there's no pace up front. They haven't got a goal scorer. A lot of things that they didn't replace well, especially Koundé and Diego Carlos, the two centre backs. So a lot of things that made life very difficult for the manager, and I think people understood. Anyway, I do believe in cycles, and there is a point where everybody looked around and thought, okay, this is now not working. Somebody else will have to come in with new ideas, new energy. But the surprising thing that happened, as you mentioned, is that his last game at Sevilla, when everybody knew that Sampaoli was coming over, a couple of days later, at the end of the game, he was focused on the game, and then when it all finished, he was just going to go into the changing room as always, and Monchi said, no, come up and go on the pitch, because I think the fans want to say something to you. And it was unbelievable. It was emotional for him, for everybody that was watching it, for the fans as well. The intensity, all of a sudden, they all realized that they had grown together to be a very competitive side, and they started chanting his name. This never happens. And some criticize Monchi for putting him in that situation. Instead, I said to both Monchi and Lopetegui, what a brilliant thing. It was like being in England. These things happen more in England than in Spain, where it's like, just, enjoy the communion and let everybody say goodbye to you, which happened. And as I said, it touched him. And that tells you that the love that was between Sevilla and him wasn't the kind of blind love that you get when you're a teenager. It was a mature love of somebody that understood what Sevilla wanted, how the fans want the team to play, but also fans that have understood every step along the way what he's been doing and why at the end things weren't working. I've insisted to him, to his people, that he needs to explain why he does things that he does, and he does that very well. His English is good. He's going to get better, but he's very good. And he needs to do that because you need to understand why things happen. And then, even though you won't, fall in love with his jokes or how he will challenge the press because he won. He's respectful. He's a good guy. You won't get any of that. So he won't be, he won't be on Sky Sports News starting the bulletins every hour because of something he said. But just find out what he's doing, because then you will understand that the quality of the job that he's about to start.
Yeah, unfortunately, running out of time here. I think we're all ready to go for kickoff down at Molineux today. But before we go, Guillem has been nominated for the Globe Soccer Awards Best Football Journalist. We'll be retweeting the link out to the timeline on the Wolves Fancast Twitter feed. Make sure you go and vote for him on there. Before we do wrap up here, Guillem, one last question for you. Unai Emery or Julen Lopetegui?
For dinner? For Vigasol United?
Well, which one of them is finishing higher in the Premier League table this season?
It's like choosing between mom and dad, Because I love them both. What I do as a journalist or writer or analyst or whatever you want to call me, it's get close to those managers that I admire and see the work that they've done. And both of them, I've been, like a fly on the wall of their careers from very earlier on, both of them. And to have both of them in the Midlands, and to have Carlos Corberán as well, to be nearby at West Brom, it's fantastic. And I cannot wait for that dinner with the three of them. And that will happen soon, I hope. Because I really, really like what the three of them do in different ways, but sons of the same idea. They're both admirers of the process, and you'll see that very soon. So that didn't answer, but you have to go. So there.
Very much a diplomat's answer there, but appreciate that. You've not upset any side of the Midlands with that answer for sure. But thank you very much for your time, Guillem. As always, everyone that's joined us, please do like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll bring you much more content. I have done a bit of my own research into Julen Lopetegui's time at Sevilla from a kind of data and tactical perspective. You can find that on the channel as well. But for now, it's goodbye from the three of us, and I hope to see you all soon.